Welcome back to episode 2 of Meaningless. I'm Analia, the Explicit Empress. Episode 2 is Cosmic Discrimination, or as someone in my life calls it, space racism. Firstly, I want to say astrological data stretches back thousands of years. The first zodiac wheel that we use today with all of the planets and all of the houses on it was created in 700 BC. The oldest known horoscope chart in history is believed to date back to 409 BC. So we've been observing the movement of the stars and the planets for a very long time. And we've been observing the patterns in humans in relation to those things for a very long time. So when I tell you that astrology gives you some pointers to look at for when you are dealing with particular placements or dominant energies in a birth chart, you just know this is not just a feeling that I have. It's data. It's data collected for a freaking long time. So, cosmic discrimination. More like informative danger flags. I would also like to add that I understand as a birth chart analyst that it's not all Geminis, it's not all Libras, because of course it's more than just one sign in our chart that describe who we are as people, that determines the colors of the flags that we wave. But in the event of the person that we are dealing with being unhealed or being determined to continue repressing unhealed emotions and being stubborn about it, then yes, all Geminis, and yes, all Libras. So I wanted to go through some informative danger flags in relation to some sun signs, because sun signs are the easiest one to get started with, because when we meet somebody, it's much more acceptable to ask when their birthday is or what sign they are than it is to ask for their time of birth so that you can run a birth chart on your phone and go through each placement. So this data is from my research and education and also my lived experience as an astrologist, as a woman, as an intuitive and observant human being having a human experience. Let's start off with what I would consider orange flags. I'm going to start with Virgo. Now, both masculine and feminine Virgos are orange flags, in my opinion. And I am a Virgo, so I know what I'm talking about. Now, the reason that Virgo energy is an orange flag is because of how it hides and judges. Virgo energy is the initial mother energy. It's a very feminine energy, and it requires you to be in touch with your intuition and with your emotional nature. At the same time, Virgo energy is a Mercury ruled sign, and it is very logical. So it wants to logically understand emotions, which is very difficult to do. It also is very critical. It's a very self-critical and also critical of others kind of energy. Now, Virgo energy rules the digestive system, so it kind of rules everything digestion, okay? This is what makes it very critical, because it digests information, it digests people's behaviors, and because it also rules the house of our habits, it gets into these routines that are correct for them, and it will often see other people not adhering to those routines as not doing the right thing. It's a very driven energy as well. So anybody who doesn't have the same kind of drive as a Virgo will come up against that really heavy, honest criticism. There are some differences in the orange flags between the masculine and the feminine energy. So the masculine Virgo energy will struggle to connect to its emotion and its intuition, because that is a very feminine energy. Virgo energy represents the initial mother energy. It's very feminine, and masculine, particularly if the rest of the placements in their chart is very masculine, can really take that energy and become that boss energy critic, where everything you do is wrong. You have to do what they say all of the time. They have particular habits, particular cleaning schedules, particular cleaning things that they want done, and they will get you to do them as the boss. A feminine Virgo will do a similar thing, but it will be coming from a more feminine energy and more of a disappointment when you don't do it than the masculine energy coming at it as you're doing it wrong. The other thing about a masculine Virgo energy is that because masculine energy is external, it goes forward, it moves forward, it is initiation, it uses the criticism, the self-criticism side. It's very good at projecting that out. It's very good at pointing out mistakes in other people, and it is very good at doing that in a very dry, unfeeling kind of way. So a masculine Virgo can be very difficult to find their emotional availability. They can be very difficult to get to talk about their feelings, and they can be very critical of the way that you live your life. And if you are someone who cannot take criticism, a masculine Virgo is not for you. A feminine Virgo has all of those qualities too. And not being able to connect to their emotions properly because Virgo energy sees emotions as messy and they get in the way. So they tend to get repressed and they kind of come out mean, explosive, critical. Virgos have a filing cabinet where they collect information. They are Mercury ruled, and they will very happily open that filing cabinet and show you all of the ways in which you have failed if they need to, particularly unhealed. So if you are a masculine who likes feminine energies, a feminine Virgo is an orange flag if you don't like being told what to do. The other thing about Virgo energy is its opposition sign. Its opposition sign is Pisces. And when we look at opposition energy, when it comes to astrology, it is the energy that not only we struggle to embrace, but we also use the toxic version of it to act out. Virgos will act out in toxic Pisces energy, and they will struggle to embrace Pisces energy. And so what does that mean? When you look at the axis of Pisces and Virgo, Pisces is oneness. It sees everything as a whole. Virgo takes that oneness and it pulls it apart, and it sorts and it digests and it criticizes, and it puts all of the puzzle pieces together if they go together, or it closes the drawers on the things it doesn't need. Toxic Pisces energy is emotional manipulation using said filing cabinet. A Virgo, unhealed, acting out because they feel attacked, because their ego is hurt, will act out in toxic Pisces energy, which can wrap a delusion of emotion around you. It can take everything that it knows will hurt you and build it into a cloak of pain and delusion. This energy can be very emotionally gaslighting. That's what makes this orange flag particularly important. Both sides, feminine and masculine, it will present a little bit differently, but the emotional manipulation is very prominent for an unhealed Virgo energy. Next orange flag is a masculine Cancer energy. So masculine Cancer energy is an interesting one. Cancer energy is ruled by the moon, which is a feminine energy again. And, I think masculine and feminine Cancers are really hard to understand if you are someone who does not have your own emotional awareness. Cancer energy intuitively feels other people's energies. It takes all of those energies and it locks them behind a hard shell, right? Cancer the crab. So in a masculine, we get that a little bit more prominent because masculine energy already can have a difficult time expressing its emotions. So a masculine Cancer energy can have so many repressed feelings that they don't want to talk about. And one of the toxic ways that Cancer energy presents itself is it struggles to talk about how it's feeling. So it wants you to treat it how it is feeling by intuitively knowing how it is feeling because it cannot talk about it, which can be very difficult in a relationship situation. So this can be a man who is not able to talk about their feelings at all. And Cancer energy acts out in its opposition energy of Capricorn. And Capricorn energy is very stubborn, very boss-like, very I am correct. So when we are dealing with a masculine Cancer energy acting out, coming at us, feeling like it's being attacked, we get the horns of the Capricorn. So when we see that side, we see that toxic Capricorn energy. That is someone who always thinks they're right. That is someone who will turn their feelings off so that they can get their point across. That is someone who refuses to hear your point of view. Orange flag, masculine Cancer. An orange flag, I think, is a feminine Sagittarius. A feminine Sagittarius, particularly unhealed, can be a huge orange flag. They have a lot of ways of presenting their toxic behavior, and it's particularly confusing, I think, for a lot of people because it comes from a feminine energy. Now, some of these behaviors coming from a masculine energy kind of make a little bit more sense in society, but coming from a feminine, particularly one who is dishonest, which is very common, can be an orange flag. Now, the reason that the dishonesty comes about is because Sagittarius energy is a very optimistic energy and it needs people to like it, because the worst thing that can happen to a Sagittarius is somebody else is upset and they are the cause of it. A Sagittarius is not someone that you often see very sad, very down. They tend to be able to pick themselves up because they understand the journey they are on is something that they learn from. They're not so focused on the goal working out. They are more focused on enjoying the journey. And so in an unhealed Sagittarius feminine, this can be a little bit of dishonesty about their requirements and needs for partners. And if you are someone who is not very exciting, feminine Sagittarius is not for you. Sagittarius energy has a really high chance of being non-monogamous because it requires a lot of excitement on its journey. So if you are not someone who can bring excitement to the journey, who can be a different character if you need to, who is happy to drop everything at the last minute and go on a holiday, who can put a costume on, who can switch and change in the relationship, a feminine Sagittarius is not for you. And they will struggle to bring that up, particularly if you are someone who is not upfront with your own needs. So if you meet a feminine Sagittarius who is very nurturing and very loving, because they all are, they all will be huge mama bears, mama tigers for everyone that they love and care about. But if you present yourself as someone who is a little bit sensitive or appearing weak, the feminine Sagittarius will have a really hard time being honest with you when their needs aren't being met. And that can lead to a lot of dishonest behavior. Feminine Sagittarius, orange flag. Last orange flag, and we are dark orange, is a masculine Leo. Leo energy is sun energy. It is born with the idea of the sun revolves around it. And if you haven't checked out my small astrology podcast, now is the time that I'm going to tell you about it, because there are particular things that we can do when raising these signs to help them. So a masculine Leo needs to be raised to understand that the journey is the important part, because they come out believing they deserve the reward, deserve the goal. They're the sun, after all, everything revolves around them. So a masculine Leo is a dark orange flag, because if they were not raised correctly, then they actually believe that the sun revolves around them. They actually believe that they are a gift to everybody, and they will expect you to treat them as such. They also have a really hard time connecting to their emotional state, because the sun is not the moon, and the moon, of course, is our emotions. And so they tend to not be able to understand their emotions unless they center them around your emotional experiences, which can be very toxic. So the dark orange flag of a Leo needs to have an ability to talk about its feelings. You probably want someone with a bit of Scorpio in their chart. So let's move on to what you're all here for, the red flags. And if you have watched my TikTok lives, you know who I'm about to talk about. Let's talk about let's go number 3. Let's do it backwards. 3, 2, 1. Number 3 in the red flag department is a feminine Libra. Libra energy is an air sign. It requires external validation in how it is showing up. It is very affected by how it thinks other people are perceiving it, and it is a chameleon if it needs to be. It will pick and choose the parts of it that it shows you. It will put on a mask. It will glamour you. The Libra ability to glamour is second to none. It has the ability to put on a different face anytime. This is the sort of energy that you can see out with different people and not recognize the person that is there. They will glamour everyone. Feminine Libras are particularly good at glamoring men and women differently. They tend to have an underlying jealousy toward other women, and they will show that very clearly to the women, but not to the men. And you often hear these experiences of, you don't understand what they're like, because that's the glamour effect. A feminine Libra, because of its external validation craving and its inability to take its mask off, can also be very manipulative, because it has the ability to perceive how you're seeing it, and it's very intuitive to who you are, and it's very logical, and it can see everything because it's balanced. And Libra energy is the first energy in the zodiac that even acknowledges relationships. So it knows things about you without you even needing to tell them. And in its toxic form, a feminine Libra will use that against you. It will know exactly what it needs to show you, exactly what the mask needs to look like, exactly what it needs to say. Now, one of the things that makes a feminine energy particularly a red flag is it can get caught up in the mirror effect. That's the other power of Libra, this ability to be a mirror. It mirrors back your feelings to you, and in its primitive and unhealed, it gets lost in knowing what its feelings are and what your feelings are. And this is where you see a feminine Libra ghost, just completely ghost out of your life, or wake up one day and realize they don't actually have feelings for you. Because eventually, particularly if you're building a longer term relationship with one or attempting to, once the kind of excitement wears off, once they're not getting that constant external validation from you like you do at the beginning of a relationship, the mirror kind of cracks and they realize that they maybe didn't like you in the first place. And they will just disappear out of your life. Red flag number 2, masculine Pisces energy. Pisces energy is a very interesting energy, and it's difficult across all masculine and feminine energies. It is the last sign in the zodiac, and it represents having learned the lesson of all of the other signs. So it's very hard to understand if you are not a Pisces or do not have high Pisces energy in your chart. It's a very emotional sign. It is a water sign, but it is the deep, dark bottom of the ocean, ethereal water sign. It feels things. Its logic is impaired, and it has an inability to see the pieces of a puzzle. It sees everything as a whole. So being very connected to its emotion, being very connected to its intuition, a masculine energy using that power, it can be very toxic, because that is a man who has the ability to understand what you need emotionally, but cannot connect to that. So they can wrap a blanket of delusion around you and you will believe it, because they're very good at that. So a masculine Pisces can be one of the most emotionally manipulative people that you can meet. They will take that masculine energy of initiation, of leadership, of being in control, and they will use it to manipulate. They also believe, like a lot of Pisces energy do, that they need to create a mask of beauty, a mask of perfection, a mask that is kind of a test. Okay, Pisces energy puts up like an external presentation of something so that you make a comment on it, so that they know how deep you are. A Pisces energy is not one that you should comment on their external appearance. They look like they've presented it that way, but it's a test. They actually want to see how deep you are. And so there's a lot of that, I want to say, conniving energy from a Pisces. And in a masculine, very toxic. And we are at my number 1 red flag. Masculine Gemini. Masculine Gemini is the most toxic of all of the signs. Gemini energy is a Mercury sign. It is polarity. It is dark and light. It has the ability to exist in the dark and the light, either at the same time, or it can turn one off. This is the energy that can live multiple lives. This is the person that you think is the perfect partner, and at some point you find out they've actually got a wife and 3 kids. Their ability to switch off parts of themselves is second to none. Their ability to have one foot in the dark while pretending they're in the light is second to none. Their ability to manipulate with words is second to none. Gemini energy is very fast energy. It does not like to sit in a feeling. It does not like to take its time to understand things. And a masculine energy already struggles with emotional connection. And when you put that Gemini energy of not wanting to do that on top of it, this is somebody who will repress a lot of emotions because they don't have time to feel them. This is also somebody who is very intuitive because it exists in the dark and the light. So it will learn on an external basis by watching you how you respond to specific words, how you respond to ways that people treat you. And it will store those things like the Virgo filing cabinet to use later for manipulation. This is somebody who will watch you with your mother and father and will see the way that you get triggered, and it will use that against you at some point in the future. Now, the reason that a masculine Gemini energy is very different to a feminine Gemini energy is because feminine energy tends to be able to connect to its emotion and its intuition. It tends to have somebody in its life that it can talk to. And the biggest thing that goes wrong for a Gemini energy is not having anyone to talk to. Gemini energy is an air sign and it requires external validation that what it's got to say is interesting. And if it doesn't have that, it will start twisting and turning its story until you find it interesting. This is what the children do. And so growing up, if they do not have somebody that they can speak to, that they feel like wants to hear what they have to say, they will manipulate everything to sound interesting. And as they grow up, men often don't have people that they can confide in, and that masculine Gemini energy becomes a mental prison. And the chance of mental illness, of emotional imbalance, of spiritual imbalance in a masculine Gemini is very high. And if you meet a masculine Gemini who has a lot of masks, be careful. Masculine Geminis tend to create versions of themselves that are external. They will be freedom fighters. They will be vegan. They will be marathon runners. They will have so many collections of things that they can talk about to make them interesting. And we get sucked into that because they have all of this information. But in reality, they don't know themselves. In reality, none of these things connect to who they are internally. They are just masks. They give them something to talk about to seem interesting, and they don't actually know who they are. And the collection of information that they have, of course, goes into the filing cabinet and gives them an ability to manipulate different types of people, to show up as different types of people. So a masculine Gemini is my number one red flag. And no one can convince me otherwise. So be careful. That was episode 2. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it helpful. I hope I didn't trigger anybody, but if I did, you know I'm right. And you don't have to be in those toxic behaviors, because once you notice a pattern, it's no longer a pattern. If I triggered you, you're welcome. Enjoy your journey of enlightenment. As I said in my first episode, I am a walking tower moment. And if I validated some experiences that you've had, please let me know. Although I don't need any more validation about the masculine Gemini, about 50% of my clients have validated that for me. So remember, we live a meaningless life. We decide the meaning. That is a gift. And as always, stay weird.